Good day everyone, especially to you sir. I will be discussing about the modernism of 20th century America. Modernism in 20th century America was a significant cultural movement that challenged traditional values and aesthetics. It encompassed various art forms including literature, visual arts, music, and architecture, reflecting a period of rapid social, technological, and political change. Key themes included experimentation, individualism, and a break from past conventions. So think of it as a rejection of the old ways of doing things in a favor in the favor of new, often radical approaches. Together with Twain's novel The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, 1876, Adventures of Huckleberry changed the course of children's literature in the United States as well as of American literature generally, presenting the first deeply felt portrait of boyhood. It is a classic of American realism, both for this portrayal. So Mark Twain's novel Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, published in 1884, following Tom Sawyer's 1876, didn't just tell us a good story, but it is fundamentally changed how we tell stories about children and boyhood in America. Before Huckleberry Finn, children's literature often presented idealized and almost perfect young characters. So this departure from idealized portrayals is what makes Huckleberry Finn so significant. Twain broke the mold, offering a raw, honest, and a deeply felt portrayal of boyhood, showing the realities of poverty, racism, and the moral complexities faced by a young boy. So this more realistic approach was a radical departure from the previous norms and is a completely new approach to children's literature. Why? It is because this groundbreaking realism, Huckleberry Finn, is now a classic of American realism. So it is a book that continues to be studied and debated, not just not just for its storytelling, but for its powerful social commentary and its lasting influence on how we understand and portray childhood in literature. So it remains a powerful and relevant work, prompting ongoing discussion about childhood, racism, and the complexities of morality. So America entered the 20th century optimistically as a wealthy, strong world power. Although this time period started off with prosperity, it soon became one characterized by two world wars and a severe economic depression. These events ushered in a new age in American literature. So modernism, as writers began to attempt to express modern life with their writings. So the early 20th century saw America emerge as a powerful nation, initially viewed with optimism and confidence. However, this period of prosperity was short lived. Why? Because the two world wars and the Great Depression profoundly impacted American society, replacing the initial optimism with uncertainty and disillusionment. These challenging events became a catalyst for change, not just in society but also in American literature. So the hardships and transformations of this era gave rise to modernism. And this literary movement, the modernism, marked a distinct break from traditional styles and themes by the word modernism. So writers responded to the fragmented and uncertain nature of modern life, reflecting the rapid social and technological changes as well as the psychological impact of war and economic hardship. So they sought new ways to express the complexities and anxieties of a world undergoing dramatic shifts. The modernist era was an era of boldness and fast paced living. So the culture saw the Harlem Renaissance and the Roaring Twenties, or the Roaring Twenties is also known as the Jazz Age. So this was a time of flourishing art and extravagant living that acted as a prequel to the Great Depression. So in literature, the era was characterized by a break away from traditional styles of poetry and other types of writing. So it is mentioned here that Ezra Pound began the Imagist movement. So this poetry abandoned all traditional form and sought to portray a single image in time. So it was during this time that authors began to experiment with different styles of writing and earned American international acclaim. So now let's look more closely at the modernist era itself. It was a time of boldness and fast-paced living, a period characterized by significant cultural shifts from traditional to a more modern approach. So the Harlem Renaissance and the Roaring Twenties, also known as the Jazz Age, flourished flourished during this time. And these movements were marked by a flourishing of art and extravagant living, creating a vibrant cultural scene. So, ironically, this period of exuberance acted as a prelude to the Great Depression. However, the impact of this era extended beyond art and social life. In literature, modernism was characterized by a decisive break from traditional styles of poetry and prose. And it is mentioned that Ezra Pound's Imagist movement is a prime example. This new style of poetry abandoned traditional forms and focusing instead on capturing a single image or moment in life or in time. So this emphasis on concise imagery and a rejection of traditional structures was highly influential. It was during this period that American authors began to experiment extensively with different styles of writing, leading to a new wave of innovative literary works and earning American writers significant international acclaim. Although their works were very different, modern authors shared a common purpose, which was to capture the essence of modern life. This purpose is why most modernist literature was written in a pessimistic way. Most modern works reflected the thoughts and confusion of most Americans, especially during the Great Depression and the two world wars. So the chaotic literature revealed the instability of the American people's mindset as they attempted to understand what was going around them. There was also a loss of faith and hope in American people during this time period and a collapse of morality and values because this is during the world wars and the Great Depression. Furthermore, this this loss and values led to a confused sense of identity and place in the world as is iterated in T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. So, despite their stylistic differences, modernist authors shared a common goal, and this common goal is to capture the essence of modern life. This shared purpose explains why much modernist literature is characterized by a pessimistic tone. So, the works of this era often reflected the anxieties and confusion felt by many Americans as a result of the war, particularly during the tumultuous period encompassing the Great Depression and the two world wars. So, the chaotic nature of the literature revealed the instability of the American mindset as individuals struggled to comprehend the rapidly changing world around them. And this period also witnessed a decline in faith and the hope, accompanied by a perceived collapse of traditional morality and values. So, this loss of established values contributed to a widespread sense of confusion about identity and one's place in the world. So, this feeling of alienation and uncertainty is powerfully expressed in works of T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, which serves as a prime example of the themes prevalent, prevalent to the modernist literature. So, the literature of the era was of 10 times fragmented to cause confusion and intentionally break the flow of words in literature. So two major themes of the era was, of course, confusion and disillusionment. These themes and this literary movement as a whole reflected the new mindset of American people after the turn of the century. It was because of this mindset and the loss of hope in American dream that the major authors of the time period, such as Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Faulkner, Eliot, and Pound, became known as the last generation. So, the literature of this era was often fragmented, intentionally disrupting the traditional flow of words. So, this stylistic choice reflected the fragmented and uncertain nature of the times. So, two dominant themes emerged: the confusion and the disillusionment. So, these themes, along with the experimental style, mirror the shift in the American mindset following the turn of the century. So, it was this prevailing sense of disillusionment, coupled with the loss of faith in the American dream, that led to a generation of writers being labeled the lost generation. And prominent authors of this period, including Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Faulkner, Eliot, and Pound, captured the anxieties and uncertainties of their time. So they really reflected their works based on their experiences during that time and solidifying their place as defining voices of the modernist movement. So that's the end of my report. So to conclude, the modernist era is um, the shift from traditional way of um, creating a literary work into a more modern way, and the reason is because of the way of living and the time period where those authors reflected their work, and it is the major shift. It is one of the major shifts in the era of literature, the modernist era. So that would be all. Thank you.